We're on the opposite side of the Yarra River. We were on the other side yesterday. We're going to take a walk down towards Docklands. There's quite a lot of lovely art along the river. We've just come from the Pharaoh exhibition, which was incredible. There were a lot of people, but it was really well worth it. We're going to head down now and see what we can find. Melbourne, of course, is famous for its coffee culture. And something else that I learned last night is it's also the home of the man who invented the black flight box recorder, a David Warren, and he invented it in 1958 in Melbourne. It's also the home of the delicious deep-fried, crispy dim sum, the Chinese dumpling, which was invented by a Chinese chef, William Wing Young, and that was in 1945. Melbourne is also famous for its, apart from its history, its art scene, theatre, sport and music, and these are regarded as some of the most amazing scenes which rival New York and Paris. Melbourne's also hosted the 1956 Summer Olympics, and true to form today we've got 4 seasons in one day. It started off rainy, then sunny, but cloudy and a little windy, which of course affects the microphone. Melbourne's also famous for its Great Ocean Road, which is a beautiful road trip, but we won't be doing that as we need to hire a car, so we'll give that a miss. The Melbourne, the city, was formed or founded in 1835 along the banks of the Yarra River, and it happened as a result of the gold rush in the 1850s, which took place mostly in Bendigo and Ballarat, which are about 160 kilometers away from the city. I didn't know it, but Melbourne was initially the capital of Australia from, I think it was between 1901 and 1927. It was during the gold rush in the 1850s that Melbourne became the richest and largest city in the world. It's also considered to be one of the world's friendliest and most livable cities, with stunning architecture, vibrant art scene, and of course, as we said earlier, it rivals New York and Paris. Melbourne was founded by a gentleman, John Batman, in 1835, and that's why often people refer to Melbourne as Gothan or Batmania. Chinatown in Melbourne is regarded as one of the oldest Chinatowns in Australia, and Melbourne is also home to the largest Greek-speaking population outside of Europe. Melbourne is Australia's second largest city. Sydney is obviously the first. And it's a combination of old world elegance and contemporary age architecture. We're coming up to quite an interesting, looks like a stone sculpture. I'll just try and zoom in on that, or zoom out on that, and it has a bit of a Picasso look to it. I think it's made from stone, but interesting colors. Yesterday we explored some of the lanes, Hosier's Lane and ACDC Lane. The street art in Melbourne is extraordinary. It's famous for its street art. ACDC was a rock band, of course, formed in 1973 by the brothers Malcolm and Angus Young. The Yarra River, the word Yarra comes from an Aboriginal word. The original First Nations people, when initially asked about the river, were told it was Yaru Yaru, meaning it flows. And of course the settlers misunderstood the word and thought they were referring to the Yarra River. The locals are referred to as Melburnians, and they refer to their home as Melbs. People are generally very nice. With our trip to the museum, people are very aware of one another's personal space and they step aside so you can see exhibits. If one has a phone and you're trying to take a picture, people create a space for each other. I'm just looking at the river. It's really beautiful today. There's a lot of dinner cruises going out or lunch cruises. And we've just been so lucky with the weather, apart from the cold. But nothing that a nice hot cup of coffee can fix. These are scooters that you can actually hire. I would imagine you probably use your mobile phone to register, and then they are unlocked with a code and with a green helmet, and then you can obviously zoot around doing some sightseeing. Not sure if I'd be brave enough to do that. I'll probably land up in the river. Melbourne also has a lot of bicycles. A lot of people, reminds me of the Netherlands. There's people always riding bikes. People would go to work on their bicycles in their suits. And it's obviously an easy city to get around on if you're on a bicycle. Probably better than trying to drive in the traffic with the dreaded hook turns and the tram hook turns that people are so weary of. So I think we'll head up towards the bridge. It looks like there's some lovely art installations up on the bridge. We'll go and see what that's all about. There must be a story there. And on the opposite side, we have Victoria University. I'd love to be in a classroom overlooking the river. There's something so special about a city built along a river. It reminds me a lot of Europe. The river is really the heart of everything, and all the entertainment, business, industries all based along the river. I've just spotted a lady doing charcoal portraits. It reminds me of the artists along the Seine in Paris. So she's obviously doing a quick charcoal portrait. Probably, I think it looks like it's about $10, and you get it in 5 minutes. And I think it looks like a it is a portrait. Can't imagine doing that in 5 minutes. And I see there's someone else. Okay. Another scooter. Melbourne is a very diverse city. There's people from all over the world. I think this other lady is doing caricatures. So we're heading up now towards the bridge. There's a lovely piece on the left. I'm not sure, it looks a bit like a bird in flight. It looks like a metal structure. And there's the tall building again that we noticed earlier on with the sky deck. I think that's the tallest building in Melbourne. But you can see it's quite chilly. Everybody's got their puffer jackets on. This will be lovely in the evening. You'll have all the restaurants with music and the lights. It'll have a lovely feel. So one of the things I noticed when we were living in Melbourne is that most of the coffee shops and little boutiques and so on all have a bowl of water outside for dogs. People are very dog friendly, and wherever you go, that's the Melbourne sky deck that we were looking at, that has that red flash on the side. But people are very dog friendly in Melbourne. So if you take a dog to a restaurant and you sit outside, there'll always be a bowl of water, or if you go into a boutique, there's a bowl of water outside for your dog. In Australia, people call their dogs doggos. Behind the bridge is the church that we went to yesterday, and of course you can see the green dome from Flinders Street Station. It's beautiful, the skyline with the old in front of the new. The contrast is beautiful. I have just spotted an angel. This is my first angel in Melbourne, and she's a metal construction based on top of some rock, and she's beautiful. She's watching over the whole riverside. So before the 1990s, the view before you would have been of factories and chimneys. From the mid-1800s, the low-lying land south of the river was used for noxious industry, which would have been abattoirs, tallow factories, copper and acid works, bone mills, distilleries, coal depots, and fellmongeries. The stench meant that they had to be located as far away from people as possible. Each day, thousands of workers would walk from their cottages in South Melbourne to the bustling factories. And most of the companies moved out to the fringe suburbs during the 50s and 60s. It wasn't until the late 1980s that the recreation and tourism value of South Bank was recognised, resulting in the opening of South Gate in 1992. Thinking about it, it was only very, very recently, literally in the last 20-something years, that this area has been, that the tourist value of this area has been developed. On the bridge, the art installations that we saw as we were approaching it are called the Travellers, designed by Nadine Karam and Atelier Hapsitis in conjunction with the city of Melbourne and Arup. So they represent Gaip, the Aboriginal period, the settler, which is the convict period of 1788 to 1868, Melbourne Beauty, the gold rushes 1850 to 1890, Walker and his tucker bag, which was assisted migration between 1830 and 1930, Shelter, which represents displaced persons between 1947 and 1953. The Urban Wheel represents European migration 1947 to 1983. The Running Couple of Refugees 1956 to 2005. Butterfly Girl is the Asian and Middle East migration 1975 to 2005. Techno Man, Students and Professionals 1975 to 2005, and Walking Sun represents Australian multiculturalism. And it's just a beautiful way of representing the passage of time in Melbourne and all the people that have contributed towards its development. All along the side of the bridge are glass panels representing people from different countries that have contributed towards the development of Australia. And I've just come across a glass panel of South Africans. So most of these South Africans came from Johannesburg, Cape Town, Pretoria, Port Elizabeth, Durban, East London, and Natal and the Cape Province. They also came from Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Botswana, Namibia, and Zambia. Arrivals began in 1870 through to 1910. These were miners and people who came over individually. 1970 to 1990 were families and opponents of apartheid. 1990 to date are people concerned with social problems. So so the languages spoken are generally English and Afrikaans. And the numbers as of 2001 in Australia, there are 79,425 native South Africans, and there are 52,119 of South African ancestry, but this was 2001, so these figures are probably no longer relevant as they would have changed quite dramatically. It seems as though at the moment the number of South Africans in Australia number approximately 200,000, so virtually double. And it's the South African population in Australia are regarded as the second largest South African population after UK in the world.